Hello, everyone, and welcome to Picture This, Big Brother Hometown's retrospective podcast, Season 3, Chapter 1. Karma's a B word. I am your host, Josh Consalvo, alongside the one, the only Mitchell Stokes. How are you, Mitchell?
I'm good, and I'm coming to you live from the Grand Canyon. I I almost put up a fake background, but that would have it's too much effort. Too much
Yeah.
effort.
If you are new here to the Picture This podcast, this is a look back on all the old seasons, the old days, the good old days of BBH. We are now on season 3. So hello, season 3 cast that decided to just cherry pick this particular season of the podcast. Welcome. We're going to talk all about you. Very excited about that. This is, like I said, chapter 1 of this season. So we will cover the introduction videos through episodes 1, 2, and 3 on this half, and then the next half will cover the rest of the season. So if you haven't watched those episodes, go check them out. They're all on YouTube, easy to watch, and a lot of fun. So off the top, Mitchell, how are you feeling? Ready for another season of this?
Well, I am really excited to talk about season 3. I'm really excited to talk about some of people that are iconic to Big Brother Hometown's history. This is our first introduction to Quinn and Max. We get to see Bradley and Abby come back. You have some really fun characters that are a part of this season who are mainstays throughout the series. I mean, Abby and Bradley are both 5-time players.
And Quinn.
And Quinn, yeah. So you have 3 5-time players that you like. God, I didn't even think I had completely forgot about that. But that's insane. Like that they're all here in BBH3, and which is it's a interesting story. It's a fun story to talk about. Through the pre-jury, it's really dominated by just like one side of things. But I think we'll get into this, but I think there is this shift and there is this turn that will lead to a very fun end and conclusion when we get to part 2. So I'm excited to talk about season 3, dig in a little bit, learn a little bit about some of the behind the scenes stuff, because there are some great narrators. But just like with season 1 and 2, there's some people who narrate their story really well, and then there's people that I'm like, who are you? Where are you at? So be interested to kind of hear a little bit more behind the scenes and get a chance to talk about it. So I'm excited.
Yeah, I'm excited about it too. This season, up to this point, was the most fun for me to host, and I think that's because there was just a lot less emotional weight tied to it because of just the cast. There wasn't, these are people that I'm still mostly connected with in some capacity. Maybe except for I don't really know Quinn at this point. I don't know Melody at this point, but everyone else I have connection to, but not super close, and it's not a big group, and it's not people that are in my day-to-day life. So I think that made it more fun, and there was a really good spirit of fun amongst this cast. They took it seriously, but they did not take it too seriously.
It wasn't personal, right?
Yeah, it wasn't like these people played hard and they were here to do the thing, but this was one of the most poppin' house chats in the history of BBH. They just enjoyed being together. They all talked about how much they enjoyed one another, and they would one of the nights they were like, we're rebelling, we're putting Josh on the block, and we're going to roast him for the next hour, stuff like that they just really just had. There's, like I said, high spirit of fun, but still I would say a very competitive season, and maybe that dominates a little bit the story of here are the moves, here are the people, here's who's turning on here's who's doing what, and maybe that's what is at the forefront more of the season. But I think it's a fun, like I said, a fun story to tell, and I'm excited to just kind of jump into it all.
Yeah, well, I'm curious. First up, off the bat, when you finish season 2, you wrap up season 2. When did you start thinking about season 3? How much of a turnaround was there? Was there anything you wanted to change or do differently? How did we get to, this 12-person cast that we have on the page?
So this comes shortly after I played my first long-term game. I played Survivor RMG, and it was a really fun experience and really good. And so I had kind of like been like dipping my toes into the org scene and to see what other games were doing and how they were functioning. And I knew what I wanted to start to create, and that was that's what birthed the Facebook page ultimately.
Right.
And I saw some other Facebook pages call themselves, the viewing lounge, which is a very, org term. But I was like, I don't want to copy everyone. And so that's why I was like, I'm going to name it the viewing party. That just sounds more fun. So I named the Facebook group the viewing party,
Right.
and had like 30 to 40 people kind of jump in, that people that had played and knew me. And like, I just invited a bunch of people, and that started to help get things rolling. But I knew what I wanted to create, and I wanted to create a place where people could watch the game. Of course, I wanted to come on and do stuff like this, like we do all the time now. I wanted to get on stream. I wanted to talk to people. I wanted to analyze. I didn't want to do this alone kind of anymore, even though I still was hosting it alone. I wanted to like start bringing in some kind of audience that could follow along. And for the people,
it's fun to share the story with. It's fun, it's fun to tell people what's going on. Like, I think what's interesting about BBH1 and BBH2 is they really just live as isolated events that you and the cast experience by themselves. And I think like that's fun in itself, but I totally get like getting to a place where you're like, wait, what I'm doing here? I want to share it. Like, I want to tell people about it. Like, I need to talk to somebody. And like
right.
as is well documented, like Jenny is like far removed. She won, and she's like, all right, I'll be back later.
Yeah.
But like, there's not like a lot of people for you to talk to. So I totally get the desire to want to like share it and who want to talk about it. Now that you have like built-in alumni essentially of people,
right? And there was people that were willing to do that and excited to do that. Like in the playlist for the episodes, you see two shows with me and Gray talking strategy and talking the whole thing. I haven't watched the second one yet. I watched the first one. Maybe you guys did too as you watch this. It's a lot of fun. Go check it out. You're gonna hear some of the same things from me here as some of the stuff that happened. But yeah, like Matt Holloman came on, Ashton and Lane did one, and just started to build this like idea that when you came to play BBH, like you were going to be watched almost like the show, and that people were going to talk about you and analyze your game. And that's just something that I think is really fun, and obviously something we still do, maybe to an overboard extent.
Literally, I mean, like, here we are, firstly, like,
right.
retrospecting, but also, like, I just think about, like, the amount of content that we create now versus, like, how long the episodes are versus how long, what information goes to RVL currently. And I don't know, it's fun to talk about these silly hobby, but it's fun to talk about. It's fun to like get on there and discuss people's moves and things that they maybe could have done better. So I get it. I totally get it.
Yeah. And so then the cast kind of started to take shape. I honestly, I wanted to avoid returning players. I didn't want that. But they kind of like, are a little bit the lifeblood of the early seasons, because they just kind of keep the casts afloat to a working number. Because honestly, I didn't have the interest. My pool to reach people was just not very big. And so like you have John and Bradley, who are like best friends. So like John got him. Max is someone that I knew because we've talked about the ministry that we all work for. He didn't work for them, but he lived near where we held summer camp for a long time. And so I would see him every summer that I worked and got to know him. I didn't really know Quinn as well, but they both signed up. Bobby and Leighton were two of my students. Abby comes back. Trey comes. I'll get to Trey in a second, but Abby comes back and shares shares the application before she even applied to play again. And Melody, one of her best friends, sees it. James is someone that works for the ministry. Raziel, Mitchell and I went to college with. Did you?
Hey, no, maybe now I'm like thinking. Was he in the music school?
Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah.
Potentially.
Yeah, Raziel was in music school with me and Mitchell, but like, only for a certain amount of time, and whatever. Not to talk about that. But yeah, is that everybody? Did I miss someone along the way?
Trey Raub.
Oh, and Trey. So Trey, I feel like I had someone else. Like I couldn't tell you who that may have dropped the last minute, or I could go back and look at even the applications to see if there's any interesting names that end up applying. I'm going to pull it up, but I remember texting Trey on my way home from work one day and was just like, I need one more person. What are the odds that you come back and play again? I may have even told him like, you're not the only one that's going to be coming back. And he thought about it for a minute and knew his schedule might be a little harder on him. But so actually there's a couple people here on this list that applied that did not come back. Someone that plays a lot of Facebook orgs, Storm, applied, did not end up playing. And a couple other people that are not org people applied, but did not end up playing. So yeah, that's probably why I went to trade the last minute, was like, you want to come back? And so he did it. I'm glad he did, because like Trey, if you watch a lot of the streams from the viewing party, we talk about Trey a lot, and I think we're going to talk about Trey a lot because I think he plays a really interesting, kind of strange game this whole way. But yeah, not to get too far into that. That's kind of where we landed, how we landed on these people.
Yeah, I think you may have said this in that stream with Gray, but you mentioned earlier about how this was the first season that was like really fun for you, and I have to imagine that that's because it was probably a lot less stressful because of the game wasn't impacting like your real life, like inner circle of like people that you interact with all the time.
Right.
So I would imagine that definitely had something to do with it. But like this cast is not unconnected. Like
Right.
and that but there's like smaller, more niche connections, but like also not, because there are like groups of people who have been bonded for years. Like you have obviously you have Max and Quinn, who are brothers and have known each other for their entire lives up to this point. You have John and Bradley, who have been friends, like best friends for like 10 plus years. You have Bobby and Leighton, who have been friends since they were like 10 years old. You have Abby and Melody, who have been really close friends for several years at this point. Like, and that's the cast basically, almost. Like
a bunch of pairs.
It's so interesting, and I think that makes it really fun to see how those kind of impact the game. And as these people sneakily, or some not so sneakily, try to hide these relationships, I think it's really fun. A really fun dynamic for the season. I think what I want to do before we go any further is I want to stop down and I want to do our word association that we've been doing as we with this cast. So remember, just give me their first.
Yeah, I've tried not to think about this too much, like as I've gotten ready. So this will be as much off the cuff as it could be.
Okay. Ben Brown.
Oh, why him first? Because he's the one that I'm. Ben Brown, a lot of missed potential.
James.
Who?
John Oliver.
Played really poorly.
Okay. Leighton.
That is how I feel.
Melody.
Played a really strong game. Could have won.
Raziel.
Oh, the comic relief of the season.
Quinn.
There's very intense.
Max.
Max, he won.
You heard it here first, folks. Trey Raub.
Oh, a roller coaster.
Abby.
Queen of the social game.
Robbed is the right word.
Yeah.
That's what you were looking for there. Bradley.
John tanked this game.
He did. Bobby.
Dark Horse. Dark Horse here had a little bit more game. Not much more than Leighton, but a little bit more.
Cool.
3-timer. Bobby, get us.
Yeah, 3. Some of us could never.
Yeah, so Another thing that we have that is different in this season is we do have an episode 0, and in episode 0, it is everyone's introduction videos. I don't feel the need to go through everybody's. I wrote quick notes about everybody's, and maybe I can just like go give those. But at the end of every season, we've been doing certain rankings, but I think it should be just as important because I think that we have a decent culture of really fun intro videos to start working on our overall top 10 intro videos. I think there's only one entry here, really, that's going to come out of this. Maybe two, I don't know. Maybe there's a couple of decent ones, but Ben, man, he just talks about himself.
How boring for someone to talk about themselves.
Yeah. No, I just mean like it's nice. Like I don't have an issue with it. It's not uninteresting. It's just not. He didn't do it. It's like, hi, I'm Ben. I do this. I do that. See ya. See you in the game. Like it's nice. It's nice.
Yeah, and that's a majority of these people.
Right, honestly. Right. That's the majority of intro videos. James talks about how he doesn't care, can't win, probably won't win, doesn't know what it is.
He manifested his own destiny.
He did. John at the Grand Canyon, I remember him saying he had this bigger idea and for whatever reason didn't work out, and it was gonna be at the Grand Canyon, so he's like, I want to at least do that part. So that's why it probably feels a little weird that he's just like, hi, I'm John, I'm at the Grand Canyon. Like,
I liked it. I thought it was fun. Like, I mean, how many people can say that they've shot an introduction video for something at the Grand Canyon? I thought it was very nice.
Yeah. Leighton bad. What he said something. I don't know. Melody really fun. Pep in her step talks about her super fandom of Big Brother. Wants to play like Paul and Tyler. Not going to make final twos, but going to make really strong alliances. She loves aliens and Game of Thrones, and I don't know. It's very cute.
She was serving in that black and white. Let me tell you, she put the filter on. She put it up for her moment. Like, and you can tell. I mean, I will say about Melody, you can tell how excited she is about the prospect of playing. She's one of the people in the season that are like you have this really weird dynamic between people like James and Raziel who are like, I have no idea what's going on. Well, this is fun, and then you have like Melody and Quinn who are like living their dream. Like they're literally like dying for this opportunity.
Yeah. Max looks so young and pure.
Baby face.
Yeah. So yeah, nice intro video for Max. Trey and Abby both babble on forever and ever and ever and ever about whatever. So Trey talks a lot. Like, love him, but everyone is confessional.
Several rambling confessionals.
Yeah. Bradley is always entertaining when he's on screen. And so his intro video is good. It's fun. He's like, you may remember me from season 1 of Big Brother Home. I was like, that kind of thing. It's fun. There's no shtick. It's just Bradley being Bradley. Bobby talks about how he's played a Survivor game that I hosted when he was my student at my old church. We did a whole Survivor night. He did make the final 2. He should have won. The jury was like, it was a bunch of boys, so like whatever, like bunch of high school boys, and so they did not vote for him to win, but he played a strong game that night. I remember that. And so that's why I had really high hopes for Bobby, because I know what, like that's a sample size, but I know what he's capable of competitively. He just never puts in enough effort. That's the problem. Like when he was at that Survivor night, he was there and focused in, and he's like, this is the thing I'm doing. And he's all in. So, I feel like if you put Bobby in the Big Brother house, like he could potentially do really, really well. And then Quinn is the last one. And Quinn is the one that is, right now for me, potentially the only slotted person that I'm, and maybe Melody as a part 2. Did I mention Raziel? Did we talk about Raziel?
And I'm glad that we're swinging back to this, because there's just something about the energy that this man exudes like on screen, and I'm like devastated we get so little of him. Right. Like he's just so interesting. And I was like,
go back and find the post of me introducing Raziel, and with the small audience we had, people were so excited. They were living for this intro video. He's like, I don't really know what this is, but I guess it's like Big Brother, but I've never seen Big Brother. Well, Muscle Top.
And I do have thoughts about that narrative, and I'm gonna hope that we can discuss that down the road some. But I will agree with you that Quinn's intro video is super fun. You like we said earlier, you can tell that this is something he's always dreamed about potentially being able to do. He does the fake key thing. He like is just very invested, and it's a lot of what we're gonna see from him throughout the season. Really about like just how invested he is in this experience and how much fun he's having and like how he's just loving playing the game. And I think a lot of people can relate to that, like the first time playing an org. Like you see this with John this season. You see this with Melody and with Max. They're just like they're having a really good time doing this thing that they never had envisioned that they would do or they would get a chance to do. And I think that just comes across as so earnest and so pure from Quinn. And yeah, I agree with you. Like add
Yeah.
him to the list.
I think it's really. This is one of those like landmark moments for me. I remember where I was when I got Quinn's intro video, and I was like, "Whoa!" Like it's not like overly produced, or it's not his season 10 intro, which is phenomenal. But like, it was so fun. Just like thought and effort went into it, and I just knocked my headphones out of my ears. We are really thriving right now. Anyway, a lot of thought and effort went into it, and I was just super impressed and it made me super excited. Like he was my preseason winner pick just for that alone. So right now, Quinn gets the number 1 spot. If I had to give a number 2 to put it on, I think it probably goes to Melody.
That's fair.
Maybe Raziel even, but like, I feel like for the effort and for all the things, I'd probably go Quinn 1, Melody 2, and that be it, and see. So I'm curious where this will track. By the end, I wouldn't be surprised if Quinn holds multiple spots on this top 10.
I do have a feeling that this could bump off at some point. There's been some really fun.
That's true.
There's some really fun intro videos in season 10. There's some really fun. Maybe only through 10 seasons he might be on here multiple times. But if we extend past that, I think maybe things could change. I think it really could become this like thing in like the teens of BBH where like people be like, well, what's an example of a video? And then you send them one of your favorites, and then they're like, come back with like really fun and great stuff.
Right.
So, but this is he's Quinn. He's our game changer. Like he changes the BBH game here with his intro video.
So with that, let's get into the actual episodes, the good stuff. So we have 3 episodes to get through. And we open up with Bradley. He talks all about how we're going to get dominated by this alliance. He talks about this alliance that he has with him and John. Obviously, he says John and I are going to work together, obviously. And that to me, in real time is very obvious to the new viewing audience. Like we've said, they've been really, really close friends for a very, very long time. And I think Bradley was John's best man fairly recently. So like they're really, really like truly best friends. And so obviously we're going to be working together. He talks about the Teddies, that Max and Quinn are going to also be in this alliance. And Bradley starts working through some alliance names. And I really want to give credit to one of these alliance names that does not get used. And I think it's so good for being what it is. So they do the portmanteau of all 4 of their names, and they come up with McQueejabra. McQueejabra is so good. It's the best alliance name never created.
It's so stupid.
No, it's so good. No, I think it's so good. Like, names like that usually don't work, and for some reason McQueejabra works. It rolls right off the tongue. And it's so good. So there was going to be that, and then they could have been the teddy bears, but the teddies didn't want to do that because it just that only encapsulates them. So they eventually, he doesn't say this, but they eventually come up with the Pineapple Pals because of this conversation happening in the main chat about pineapple on pizza. The funny part is Trey was supposed to be in this alliance because he liked pineapple on pizza, and I don't remember, it gets talked about in the finale episode, so when we get there we'll circle back because I know Quinn talks about it.
I just remember
someone's supposed to be out.
Yeah, well, I just remember like in the lore of this, like, post, seasons down the road, this being something that is like well, there was a mistake. Somebody doesn't even actually like pineapple on their pizza, like, which is the correct take. I don't want to fight about it. I like.
There's one instance where I have liked pineapple on pizza. I haven't had it very often, but Papa John's has this like barbecue chicken pizza thing. I forget what it's even called, and it has pineapple on it, and it works really, really well. But like, don't throw pineapple on just a regular pizza. Like, I need it to like make sense, like as a part of a bigger unit.
Yeah.
So like pineapple in general.
I can get behind the pineapple pals if it's like this, like we just love pineapples,
Yeah.
fruit, like it's delicious. Like, but then they go and say that the reason that they are going to make this alliance is because it's good on pizza. And to me, that is just like the immediate jumping off point where I know that I'm going to be rooting against them the entire season. And like, and that's not that's all in jest, but like this is the alliance that is going to dominate the pre-jury section of this game, and it's the alliance that as a viewer I would be rooting against. Like just for that reason alone, because I'm well documented saying I love the struggle. I love the back and forth that Big Brother creates and provides, and it's not the most fun thing in the world to watch this alliance, steamroll the first portion of this game. What is fun and what I am excited to talk about with this alliance is they don't trust each other from the get-go. Like obviously Quinn and Max trust each other, and John and Bradley trust each other, but as a group, there is always this underlying tone of mistrust and like, are they going to turn on us first? Or are they going to, who's going to come for who? And I think that's really fun and will be fun to watch and discuss. But this is the I'm rooting against the alliance. I gotta say, like,
I agree with what you're saying for the most part. I think that of these four people, Quinn is like holding on to loyalty as hard as he can, even when he doesn't agree with things. And we see him frustrated about things, but he's going to hold on to his loyalty no matter what. We shortly after this get both Quinn and Max talking about them. There's this dialogue in their intro videos about, are Max and I going to work together? What are we going to do? And then they immediately are like, yeah, we're going to work together, of course.
And it's so interesting too, because like between the two players, between Max and Quinn, like we have a lot of history to in the future to talk about them in BBH. And historically, Quinn is the more bombastic player. I want to make moves. I got to turn on my alliance to pad my resume. And Max is like more so like, I'm sorry, I'm misspeaking. That's how Quinn plays. He plays this bombastic. He talks a lot in the diary room about, having to do these things and having to make these moves. Max is more reserved. He plays laid back. He relies on his physical comp game. And like, but what you and he plays this more like low key. In the actuality of things, Quinn is a very loyal player. Max is a backstabber, and like, and it's so interesting to view them, this like inverse of each other, playing opposite of their play style, like of their personality. Is very interesting to like track, just given we have so much history and so many different games that they are in. It's just interesting to think about, like Quinn plays big, bold, brash like character, but he's a loyal soldier.
Right.
Max is
and Quinn would be the first one to be like, if Quinn was sitting here right now, he would look at you in the face and say, "Thank you." Thank you. That's what he would say. So I'm saying that on behalf of Quinn because you're right, he's such a loyal player. We're gonna see this over and over and over and over and over again with Quintetti. Like that is his game, but for some reason, and maybe it's because of the big personality and what people have seen, he just is always playing defense, and that's the thing he's going to talk about in like season 8 and 10 and whatever. So we'll get to that, but I do want to say, and this is to your point, Quinn talks about Big Brother Little Brother, the new alliance. Max talks about Big Brother Little Brother. The difference is Max says something like, yeah, I'm cool with that, but I'll ride out the wave of brother trust as far as it can take me, but we'll see. And this is some foreshadowing. Foreshadowing.
it's funny, you know, I'm not like a huge historian, like in terms of like world history or like United States history or whatever, but like one thing that I always think about when I think about world history, I don't know why I'm going on a tangent about world history right now, but I always think about like you have to remember that history is told by the victor. History is dictated by the victor. Who ultimately goes on to win the season? It's Max Teddy. So you and who ultimately goes on to be like this commentator and host of Big Brother Hometowns? It's Max. And so Max has a platform a lot of times to get on here and talk about his game and talk about his game versus Quinn's game. And Max is a villain. He doesn't want to admit it sometimes, but he likes to get on there and say like, oh, Quinn plays bad because yada yada yada, or Quinn does this. And I think a lot of that is just him projecting some of the like things that he does in games, which we're gonna talk about as we talk about it here and in season 7 specifically, like in season 3 and season 7, where he takes big swings as a player that are brash and not the correct move at the time and don't go poorly for him. So and I'm not trying to like crap on Max. I'm not like I'm just saying like we have to remember that like Max has the platform in the history of BBH to like dictate the way that sometimes that Quinn is viewed as a player. And I think he kind of gets a bad rap. And maybe I'm just defending Quinn because I play a lot like Quinn. Quinn and I are very similar players. We're big characters, but we truly like, we're not that bad. We're not bad guys. We're not bad guys.
So then we hear from Ben, who I find to be a really interesting player. A little reminds me in some. I don't know who he reminds me of. Like I was gonna say Daniel Sanchez in some ways, which seems really ridiculous. But like, and what I mean by that is it's very like calculated in the sense that like all things are absolute. Like this means this. Like I have this, so it's this. And here's what I mean. Like he says, okay, and we hear this a lot. He's like, I got some alliances. Me and Melody, we have the Ravenclaw Alliance because we're both Ravenclaws. The Tiger Alliance, me, Max, and Bobby, because we are all Clemson grads. Like Trey reached out, finally texted me back, so now we're in alliance. like it's just like, oh, I have alliances, and I think that's there's a few flaws in Ben's game, and I think this is one of them. And it's this very surface level alliance making, and I think that's going to unfortunately be a part of his undoing. But we can kind of circle back to Ben unless you have some thoughts on Ben just kind of off the top.
I totally get what you're saying about like when you just have a one-on-one chat with somebody. That's not an alliance. Like like a one-on-one chat does not equal an alliance. And like honestly, I am so hesitant to call just like even a final two like an alliance. Like it's just you're like I don't know. I don't get into this whole like, well, that's my alliance because alliance to me is like multiple people
Right.
that are working together to achieve the same goals. Working together, and like a duo. That's it is an alliance to an extent. I'm not gonna like sit and die on a hill about it, but like I think I agree with you that there is very much this like one-to-one relationship with Ben where he's like, oh, this person talked to me. We are in an alliance now. And it's like, okay, but what are you going to do with that? How are you moving forward with that? And I don't really feel like we get a lot over the course of these episodes with Ben where we're like seeing where he's taking those alliances or trying to build upon those alliances to further his game or further his standing.
Right. And I think it's interesting to see someone like that, especially like it's like watching BBH grow, sometimes also goes with seeing people like just like have these like that's like a growth point as a series. You see someone like this is kind of what it was in some regard though. Like it's kind of like, there's people playing harder than that for sure, but like it's kind of a little bit where we were as the wheels are turning of the series as a whole. So I just find that interesting. Bradley, sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, and I don't fault players who play like that because they have no context, especially in the early days here, as we've discussed over and over again. They don't have the context to know, like, they've not played 5 bajillion games. They're just taking it piece by piece, trying to figure it out. So I don't fault him for that. I just think like if we're gonna you know do a retrospective and talk about the strategy of like this, then we have to mention it. I don't blame him though. Like I'm not like mad. Like like Ben Brown is a lovely person. I actually had the
Mm.
pleasure of meeting him. Like he's wonderful and he's very fun character. You know, would love to have him play again and see like how he potentially changes and adapts if he would ever be interested in that. But who knows?
Yeah. We get quickly Bradley talking about. You can sense that Bradley is enjoying himself more. He even says the happy vibes are here. I really like anyone. This is so much better than last time. He was basically like, I love everyone except for James, and we'll get to more about the James and Bradley rivalry because it's very funny. It's just very funny, but we'll get to that when it matters. And then we have the ye old plague to start the season, and the twist on the plague. So in the early days of the plague, if we've not mentioned this before, the plaguers were plaguing anonymously, and so that's how some things were able to work. I mean, we've messed with the plague a million times, but the plaguers were plaguing anonymously, and so instead of the first player gaining just automatic safety this time, the first player anonymously was going to get some kind of advantage. And so we know that this is Trey at this point. So Trey comes to the diary room and has the choice. There are 3 envelopes. They all have advantages in it. He was getting something good no matter what. And he picked one of 3 envelopes. I don't remember what the other 2 advantages. Well, one of them was the extra vote that Ben gets down the line. And Trey wins the extra power veto. It's good until final 8. I think this becomes a big story for him into how he's going to use or not use it down the line. But right now he has this extra power of veto.
Mhm.
And
I I find it so fascinating that John gets to be the person to win. I don't know if you like have a recollection of how all this went down at all, but
I
you
have the
know,
plague list. That's
yeah,
and so I was trying to piece it together as to what led to what. You can obviously see like really the Pineapple Pals just like kind of working their way through this. So
sure.
so Trey gets it. He plagues Leighton. Leighton plagues James. That's so easy because I'm surprised James wasn't plagued first, but James, and then James plagues Bradley, which is really funny because I think he plagues him before any of their drama actually happens. But that didn't help. Bradley plagues Raziel. Raziel plagues Abby. Abby plagues Max. Max plagues Melody. Melody plagues Ben. Ben plagues Quinn, who plagues Bobby, who is Quinn plaguing Bobby, therefore making John the HOH. So Quinn was in that driver's seat had that last option, and obviously it gives John the HOH. I think when you have a group of 4 here, that's pretty strong, and Bradley and John have Bobby and Leighton kind of on the side. They're the dudes, and they remain the dudes for season 3 and season 5. I think that they kind of are able to drive the story of the plague pretty easily. Kind of John and Bradley at the center of it all, making sure that they get what they want. And Bradley making John first HOH is great because Bradley was already first HOH once, and it worked out fine for him. But I don't think he was dying to do it again here.
You know what though? It's funny because doesn't he say in his first confessional that he's like, I don't think I'm gonna win, but I might.
Yeah,
And if I do, then I'm going to just like make everyone anxious and make them wait. And just very Bradley to like
right.
to be a little villainous and play like that. But I do think like Bradley he articulates some growth like in terms of the things that he learned from season 1 going into season 3 about making sure you're talking to everybody who's in the game, don't disregard people. And I think like, you know, if that's the way he's playing, it's a shame that it does unravel for him. And we can discuss, how and why that does happen, but
Yeah, I for the longest time have known and thought that Bradley's game unravels not because of his own doing, Completely. He's not totally innocent, but like, and we will get to it because that's where this episode will end, or this episode of the podcast will end, is with Bradley going home. So we'll see kind of how we get from point A to point B. But early on, and then through a lot of this early going, Bradley's just sitting in such a good position. And he even talks about it, how good of a position he's in. So we get Melody's first confessional. She talks about her relationship with Abby. Abby and Melody talk in separate confessionals about how they're going to cover up that they're best friends, and it's a mess. And like it's so bad. They're both from Johnson City, Tennessee. Like no one's buying any of this. It's so stupid.
ladies, at least come up with the same story,
Right, the same
please.
story.
Like they just like obviously. I think like it's probably that like natural instinct for both of them, thinking like, oh yeah, we need to cover up that like we're like very close. Correct instinct. The wrong instinct is to say, I don't need to talk to this person about it. And like, how do you get your story mixed up here, babes? Like, how did we not like come to a consensus about what we were gonna say?
Yeah, totally. I know what you're about to say, or what we're going to talk about here when I get to Trey. But I will defend him just a little bit. But we're going to make the jokes, and we're going to say the things we have to say.
The only thing I have to say is I did bring a bit, and I will be doing the rest of this portion of the podcast.
With a candle. For those listening, he pulled out his candle. So then I'll make the jokes that I felt like should be made. So we get this long confessional from Trey about his extra power veto. He can use it to final 8.
Oh, sorry. Yes.
Yeah. And then he feels super safe. John's HOH. That's awesome. They know each other from back home. Like he's as safe as safe can get. Like it's awesome. And then we cut right to John nominating him. Which is funny because in season 2, and John nominates him and says, hey, these are the people that haven't reached out to me. And in season 2, we just talked about this, how Trey goes up on the block in round 1 because he rested on his laurels, didn't talk to the HOH, thought he was good, and goes on the block. Now, that's not what really happened, but that's what it looks like happened, and it's very funny.
No, it is. And I just had like a blank spot there, but like, no, I had forgotten that this happened. And in my rewatch, I audibly what's that word, guffawed out loud. Like I audibly like gasped, and I audibly like had this like moment, because I think Trey is correct. Objectively, he has the most connections on this cast. He knows John and Bradley.
Yep.
He's met Ben Brown. He's, I think, met several people from like potentially like CKM like adjacent things. Like he obviously played with Abby. Like, so based on all of that, objectively, he should be fine here.
Yeah.
Like,
and he ends up being fine. Like,
right.
Ultimately. So, but this is such like a John thing to do, this nomination set, like kind of making mountains out of molehills a little bit. It's the first HOH, but even here, John is trying to avoid like getting blood on his hands as best he can. And I guess it kind of works out because there's alliance with Trey and Bradley and John, and they're like, and John's like, I'm going to put you on the block, but like, you're not going anywhere. We need to separate ourselves so people don't like put together that we, grew up together in some capacity and know each other. And John's like, you're not going anywhere. Trey has this power veto that he's not told anyone about yet. And he can use it if he wants to, and it would just make him safe, and he's not going to be first boot, but good on Trey. Trust some instincts a little bit here, and he doesn't ultimately use his power veto that could have, he could have gone home as first boot with an advantage in his pocket here. But he was in a no-lose situation, I think, when we get to it. So John nominates Trey and James. Acts like Trey hasn't reached out to him. Not true. James has not reached out to him. James has not reached out to anyone. James has not been 100% absent. Like, he has surfaced a few times up to this point, but he's basically nowhere to be found otherwise.
He just doesn't. Does he just not want to participate? Does does life get in the way? Like, sometimes, a lot of times, there's a reason for all of this.
I think it's a combination of the life was definitely in the way. So this game started the weekend that CKM has one of their biggest events. And he was a big part of that and was doing a lot of things that weekend. So he just kind of got behind. But what he does to get to catch up is not great.
Okay.
And I don't even know when we can get into it. I know I wrote it down when we're gonna, but oh, okay. So we'll get there actually here in a minute. So, you know, you kind of covered this. We get the Abby confessional right after about the backstory and them not lining up. You know, such bad lying, bad planning, all of that. But then here we start to get the sequence of people talking about James.
Mhm.
Bradley says, I don't know what James' problem is, but I don't like him. It's really funny. Then we get Quinn really like loud and frustrated at James. I don't know what your problem is, James, but we're getting you at like it's very big
It's
brother in the
so
diary room.
it's but like that's just Quinn.
Yeah.
Like it also is just him. Like he was mad at James for whatever reason, and he sat down and he recorded that.
Yeah.
And it's so indignant, and it's so I'm gonna use I just feel like the word for Quinn is bombastic. Like that's just it's just so bombastic and like it's hilarious.
So I want to keep working to the vote here, and then I'm going to tell the whole James story. So, um, so Ben wins the power of veto, and then Trey magically wants to work with Ben.
Love it. I love it so much.
Which is really funny. And Ben once again like was like, all right, cool. Trey
Yeah.
wants Trey says, oh, I didn't see your message, which may or may not be true. I don't know. And Ben just says, all right, I accept that. Why would you tell me a lie?
Now I will say I just have such an issue with that, Trey. Like as somebody who played season 2, like you should know you gotta message people. You
Yeah.
gotta talk to people. Like a lot of these people, they don't know. Like I remember when I played my first org, day 3 or 4 being like, oh, this person hasn't talked to me. Like, you know, would never let that happen once I know, now that I know. But, like
Right.
when your first time in the game, like I don't blame you necessarily. So but Trey should know better. Trey knows better.
Yeah. Ben ultimately does not use the power of veto, and James goes home unanimously. I really want to get to the James stuff. So, so I don't even know in what order all these things happen, but basically, like I said, the house chat really fun, lots of great energy, people having a great time. James, I tried to find it today, but I could not for the life of me find it in the chat, but it did happen. James shows up out of nowhere and asks if these people wouldn't mind, or if I would mind as the host, putting a limit on the amount that people were allowed to talk in the house chat. No. Because he was, I guess, annoyed by the notifications or whatever. There was a comment later on. So Bradley, knowing that James is toast, like is unafraid to like kind of go at him. Max at one point one of the nights said something to the effect of, hey, I'm gonna put it on mute for the rest of the night. I got some homework to do. I got some stuff to do. I'm gonna check out for the night. And James comes out of nowhere and just says, yeah, I put this thing on mute once it said welcome to Big Brother. And and Bradley immediately responds with something to the effect of, yeah, no one assumes otherwise from you. Like, yeah, it's like, we know, we're aware. So that thing about wanting to limit the chat really annoyed people, because it's like, hey, we all signed up for this experience that we want to have. Like, who are you to say that we should not be allowed to talk to one another in the main space that we have to talk to one another? It was just very, very off-putting. So that's where the first thing starts. So then when the eviction vote rolls around, we're waiting on some votes, and people are chatting in the house chat, and Bradley comes in and says, sorry I'm late, guys. I'm going to send my video to evict James here in a second.
Bradley's a damn mess. Like, but I love it so much.
And then,
oh God,
then James decides, I guess I'll play for a few minutes. He changes his name in GroupMe and his picture to Bradley Consalvo 2. Changes his picture to Bradley and starts making fun of himself as Bradley.
Oh my God.
And it's so stupid. It's so good, and it's just so unnecessary. But it was so funny, like because James was done, everyone knew it. Like, and
Right.
James just goes out like in this unbelievably strange way, and yeah, that's the story, the start,
That's
middle, and end of the James Garcia experience.
honestly iconic behavior though.
Yeah,
Like kind of iconic. So
yeah. Um,
that's so
and that so that brings us into episode 2, only an hour into the podcast.
we've
Oh,
been moving through this. We've been zooming through the episode part. We had
yeah,
a lot to talk about
yeah,
at the
that's
outset.
true. That's true.
Um,
Uh,
have you noticed in I don't have you noticed in Max's confessionals where he does this like shifty eye
yeah,
thing?
yeah, yeah. Yeah, that's
Like,
just what we're gonna say. Yeah,
honestly, that's all I wrote about this confessional.
yeah. I wrote that Max is happy James is gone. And so is everybody. So yeah, Max does the shifty eye thing a lot. He does
It's
it
so funny.
a big one later. We get a quick confessional, very quick, of Abby discovering that Max and Quinn are brothers. It's the little things. This was a thing. This was a thing that people did not realize for several days, that Max and Quinn Teddy, not Max and Quinn Johnson, Max and Quinn Smith,
Right.
Max and Quinn Teddy were related. um, so, you know, a similar-ish thing happens in season 6 where it takes us a decent amount of time for people to realize Maddie and Parker were married. And so, maybe I'll give the benefit of the doubt, but at the same time, like, come on, give me a break.
At least Maddie and Parker, one of them changed their name on Facebook, on group me on the cast graphic. Like what they had the sense to like not link each other. Like, but no, I think it's hilarious. And like Abby makes this absolute face of disgust at like how dare these two brothers play the same season. Like she doesn't have her best friend
Right.
Melody right there. And she's
Please.
like, it's so funny.
Um,
Also, though, I want to sit down here and talk about this. She says this game doesn't have as much drama
drama.
as my first season, and you know what? I do have to agree. And not that I need
It's
like
round 2.
Greg Wells levels of drama every season or every round of Big Brother Hometowns, but like, yes, it is round 2, but also like the first round of BBH1 was iconic. Like
Sure.
the opening days of BBH2 is so fun. So like I get this from Abby, like, and I do raise that like a lot of this season doesn't really kick off until like the Quinn boot, truly. But um, there's still fun things to talk about along the way, like some really inconsequential boots coming forward. But it'll be fun at the same time.
Yeah. Then we get we hear from Max wanting to start to reach out to Melody, reach out to other people, which is good. Like we're going to start to see seeds planted of people like branching out and trying to make other alliances, which is good. And then we get to our HOH, which is the Deep Undercover Secret Spy name.
And I clocked it this time because somebody makes their name James Garcia too. And I was like, oh, that must be that like that spy agent, whatever, HOH. So
yeah. And so Bradley makes his name James Garcia too, of course. And he gets the votes to win because people just thought that was funny. I don't know if people knew that was Bradley deep in their subconscious because it makes the most sense for it to be Bradley, but at the same time, everyone was there for the big blow up. So Bradley wins. He doesn't win the first HOH, but he wins the second HOH. And frankly, the Pineapple Pals stay safe another day in the early game.
Yeah. And what I will say is fun about this is that Max is in that alliance with Bobby and Ben Brown, and with the Clemson, the Tiger Alliance, whatever it's called. And you do see this kind of like pulled between two places that Max is going to find himself in at several points throughout the season. That's the difficult thing when you willingly put yourself in the middle. Which I think is a credit to Max's game and a credit to his win condition as a winner. He plays the middle very well throughout the pre-jury portion of the game. He's pretty much safe, even when he's on the block, like there's very few risk of him leaving. So I think that's important to talk about as like Max, our eventual winner. Like it's the first instance of him being stuck between the two sides that he's found himself as part of. And that's because, Bradley wants to put up Ben here as a nominee. So,
yeah. And he also wants to put up Raziel, which Quinn has a huge issue with. And he was very vocal about this, not just in confessional, but to people, like to his alliance, to the pineapple pals. He really did not like this. And I think it was silly then. I think it's silly now for how I think it's bad gameplay for what Quinn is doing, because it's the early days of a Big Brother game. These are the type of people that go home. These are the type of players that go home. You just have to be okay with it. And not only that, is he's also like, he's telling his alliance he wants to take Raziel to the final two. Like,
right, yeah. No, like the definition of an alliance.
Yeah,
blah, blah, and I said, I literally just went like, "Girl, stop being so dramatic." like it's the second round. Like, you cannot drag Raziel to the end of the game. Who I want to take a second to swing back to Raziel's confessional where he says, "I don't know what's going on, but I'm having a good time." Like, babe, it is the second round of the game. It takes 5 minutes to Google Big Brother and read the rules. Right. I have such an issue with that. Like, if you sign up to play, that's fine. Have fun. But like, I don't know what's going on shtick. Like, it takes 5 seconds to Google and understand the rules to the game that you're playing.
Right,
like,
because the audience wants to see you learn the game and then play it. That's what we want. We love the person that's like, I don't know what this is, but I'm going to jump right in. And he jumped in and he like was in there, but he truly never grasped what was going on. And it could have been figured out.
Right. So, but like, I think it's bold of Quinn to assume, and this is the type of player that he is, the type of way that he speaks about his own game. But I think it's very bold of him to assume that he's just going to drag Raziel to the final two from, the final 12. But like,
right, exactly. So we do get Bradley's nominations. I do want to just like stop for a quick second and say, in season 1, Bradley's first nominations, he uses the Snapchat filter, if you recall, to kind of mask the hard thing that he's doing. This time he goes all silly voice and like, I'm nominating Raziel and I'm nominating Ben, and this is what I'm doing. I hope you all have a good day. This is where I'm Bradley Gonzalo. Like, that's what he's doing, and it's the same thing. It's a defense mechanism against the thing that is a not natural thing to do, right, which is to by name call people out that you don't want to be here anymore.
Yeah, I love it.
And so
he also shouts out your mom, which we're back to shouting out mom, which I think is hilarious. Like, I mean, Bradley continues to be incredibly entertaining when he's on the screen. I think what's different about this season versus season 1, I feel like a lot of what we're getting from Bradley is like less strategic. Like, I feel like season 1, he was such a good narrator and he was so strategic about the things that he was attempting to do and trying to accomplish. And then like this season, I feel like it's just like little quips and little like jokes, or like, John said to do this, so I'm gonna do it, like type of situations, versus like Bradley really articulating and trying to think through the things that are best for his game.
Well, and I think it's because in this early goings, and then it comes crashing down really fast. In these early goings, things are working out for him. He's not having to work very hard to get the things he wants. He ruffles Quinn's feathers a little bit here, but like we talked about, Quinn is a loyal soldier and ultimately has no issue with this, with Raziel ultimately being the one that goes home. And so things are working out for Bradley. So he's not having to he's not telling us a whole lot strategically, because there's not a whole lot going on that, isn't just, kind of cut and dry.
Yeah, I think that's fair. And like, after two rounds of this game, I'm still rooting against the Pineapple Pals.
Sure. Well, it's not going to last much longer. We then quickly hear that Ben wins the power of veto through this quick sequence that I know that you want an answer to.
Yes, I do.
So there's the sequence where I come on with a video and I say Ben won, and then John comes in and says, "Was that so hard?" I don't know why I put that in the episode, but it's funny. Basically, I announced the winner via text message, via just regular message in the house chat, and John said no. He said, He said, "You make us make videos. You make us watch videos. I watch every single one of them. You are gonna make a video." And so I said, "Fine." Ben won, and, which is funny because I actually did find this today. John, I said the winner of the power veto is Ben, and John says, "I have an issue with this." And he said, "Well, he said not with Ben winning. I'm fine with that. It's the video, the fact that you didn't send a video." So that is a very funny thing. And we now have 2 veto wins for Ben in back-to-back rounds. Now, this one he's on the block, so you can't blame him for gunning for it. But the problem is that he wanted a veto early on that he probably had not no business winning, but like didn't really have any need to win because James was going home unless he were to pull out that veto, which he did not. So Ben now has a second veto win now, pulling himself off the block, rising that threat level from someone beyond the Pineapple Pals. Bradley has now nominated him by name, and so now Ben is a threat to Bradley.
Which we know historically Bradley does not do well with when he feels like he has an enemy. He will like literally stop at nothing to get them out.
Right. So once Ben uses the power veto on himself, Bradley has to pretty much try and figure out a way to get Raziel out while minimizing blood on his hands. And he ends up going with Melody as a pretty safe bet that no one's going to take Melody out this early. She has some, protection from people. I think he probably does a little bit. He talks about how he's doing a lot of thinking, but he probably was also doing a lot of surveying of the house and like, are you going to vote Raziel out? All these things. And yeah, and so Melody ends up going up, and we have a stray voter.
Yeah, I was very curious about that. I was like, is there context? Is it just for fun? Like, no idea.
I couldn't even tell you that it was just for fun. I don't know what Leighton is doing most of the time when he plays this game. It didn't make sense to me then. It doesn't make sense to me now. I remember that being a moment where I was like, why? Bobby, you're super close with, like, is doing this one thing and you're doing something different. Like, I feel like Leighton, he may do this again in season 5. Don't quote me on that, but yeah, he votes off Melody here for whatever reason. I couldn't tell you why. I don't think he was like knew Big Brother well enough to know that rogue votes were
what he was doing. Yeah, like like did he understand the comp? Like, did he just like Raziel better?
Right. I just don't know why it happened. And this does have some lingering effects throughout the house. I don't think anyone ever figures out that it was Leighton because why would they? But like, you hear late. Oh, this is where we get the big shifty eyes from Max. Like, oh, Melody's so angry. Max thinks it's Quinn. Melody wants to figure out who it is. Ben is like, oh, we got to figure out who this one is and send them home. Like all these things, like, but yeah, it doesn't amount to a whole lot really because no one figures out that it's Leighton, so they can't really just like.
And nobody seems to care either, which is funny. Like, there's a history of rogue voting all the time in any sort of game like this, and if people care, it can really be a major storyline.
Right.
But like, no one seems to really care about this, like past the night that it happened, and it's very inconsequential.
Yeah. So then we go into a classic BBH round, and this is, I think this was the first time we did this, but you could play for HOH or you could play for an advantage. Now, unfortunately, I did not keep the records of who played for what here, so I don't know for sure. What we do know is that Bradley played for the advantage. He's outgoing HOH. Ben plays for the advantage because he wins it, and Quinn plays for the HOH because he wins it. That's what we know for sure. So that's unfortunate because I wish that I had that list because I think it could shed some light on how people feel about their positioning because that's often what that round comes down to. I think this is really interesting from Ben to play for this. You think that like he's in a great position to play for HOH.
Yeah, after just being on the block, you have someone that you can nominate. Maybe he just had eyes bigger than his,
right,
and his brain essentially. Like, ooh, a secret advantage. Like, I need it. I need to know what it is. Like Ben really is good at some of the BBH comps. Like, he's won 2 vetoes. He wins this. He's so close to being the person ultimately who comes back. In the battle back. So I don't know, like if there's another world where Ben wants to play, like he could do some damage if he got to a certain point as like a challenge competitor.
Yeah, he makes a real comp beast out of himself, which is a big part of why he gets pegged as a threat, because his alliances aren't strong enough to protect him. Ultimately, people that he's aligned with are going to go the other way. Now, in some instances, he's stuck between a rock and a hard place. Like Bobby's, when it's Ben versus Leighton on the block. If that was the situation, was it Ben versus Leighton on the block? Why do I have that in my head? At some point, yes. So when it's ultimately Ben versus Leighton on the block, like Bobby's never going to vote out Leighton, his like best friend and maybe even roommate at the time. I don't remember. Right. But Ben talks about having the advantage after Quinn is deemed the HOH, and the advantage is an extra vote that can be cast. And so Ben has that in his back pocket that he is ready to use. But ultimately, that's not super powerful here.
Not when Trey's the only person who ultimately is willing to save you. In theory, great advantage. Very inconsequential to this season in particular, but I think for me the most important thing that happens in this round is you see the continued seeds of distrust in the Pineapple Pals. We have a confessional from Bradley, and he's talking about how he's not sure what Quinn or Max would do if they were to win. He hopes that they would stay, with the group, but also he knows in the back of his mind that him and John are eventually gonna ditch them anyway. Right. And so you have that versus you have the Max confessional where Max he shows a lot of self-awareness in this moment where he says, this game has been so easy for me right now so far. Literally, John and Bradley, who I was aligned with, one HOH. Now my brother wins the HOH. I'm just chilling. I'm just going to sleep. Then we have the Quinn confessional. He's talking about moving towards aligning with Melody and Abby and away from John and Bradley, but he's not sure if this is the time for him to break that alliance. He outlines his plan to backdoor Ben. I'm sitting here asking myself the question, is that the right move? Is a round 3 backdoor really the move that you need to for your resume at the final 10 or the final 11? We talked about this last season with Gray when he backdoors Greg in round 2 of the game, and ultimately is one of the things that we pegged as the reason that Gray loses the game, in 9th, 8th place, because he elevates himself. So is this something that we can attribute the same thing with Quinn? Is this the right move for Quinn? Given the scope of everything going on, what do you think?
So Quinn is loyal, like we said, and this is where he's kind of taken one for the team, because I don't know that Ben is adamantly opposed to Quinn.
Right.
Like he might maybe he puts up Bradley and Quinn if Ben wins HOH, but I think this is a risk you got to take when you have an advantage to play for. I don't think this was an HOH built for Quinn. Because it really does become a big part of what sends him home for a minute, but he did get voted out, but I don't know that he needs this right here. I don't know what he gave, and then to go through the whole exercise of the back door. Now I understand why, if your target is Ben, then the back door is the option, because he's a proven challenge competitor at this point. He's gonna win the comps he needs. He's probably gonna pull himself on the block. You gotta give yourself a chance to get him out with the back door. But it's the first big move of the season. Yeah, and it's I was gonna say malicious, but it's not. Malicious in the game sense that you're pulling the rug out from under Ben's legs here.
And he's relishing it. He is eating it up. Quinn is just absolutely
and that's part of the I'm playing Big Brother experience.
Yeah.
I'm backdooring somebody and I'm getting him out of here, like you said. And and he does it. And if he had known that Bob or Bradley and John were on the verge of jumping ship, which we'll get to, and I think is its own thing, maybe things go different. But I think this is just such a poorly timed HOH, making this big move, elevating himself to this level.
He makes the move for Bradley. I mean, we just talking about Bradley now has Ben left in the game after nominating him. Like we just said, like Bradley will do anything to get people out of the game, like when he feels like he has a threat to himself, and like I see it. I don't need to have been around BBH3 to know that Bradley pushed so hard for Quinn to stay loyal, for Quinn to backdoor Ben. Like I know that this plan gets birthed at Bradley's hands, and Quinn eats it up like it's his own idea. I know that that's what's happening here. I don't need to
Oh,
have
it
been
is.
there to know.
Bradley is in such a comfortable spot.
Yeah,
He's in this comfy alliance. All these things. I mean, we kind of jumped over this. Quinn wins the POV. He backs and he puts Ben on the block in Bobby's place. And this just sits Bradley in such a good spot, and it makes me just so wonder why they turned on them.
I don't get it.
Makes no sense, but I want to save that. But Bradley is maybe the best spot in the game. He's playing a good social game with some of the other players. He's Abby and Melody, and he's in with these good players. Ben, his one threat is out the door.
Yep.
Just like all of these things, and maybe Ben comes back in the game if not, and who knows what happens at that point. But that's a lot of
the what ifs.
Yeah, the what ifs. One thing I do want to note here is that Trey is given the advantage from Ben. Trey now owns this extra vote. He owns an extra veto. And Trey knows that Ben is not staying no matter what he does. Trey knows this. And maybe just as a good person, out as an act of good faith, to Ben, I don't know if he's thinking maybe there's a battle back and I'll be in Ben's good graces. All these things, I don't, and even then, I don't understand why Trey uses this advantage.
Yeah, it takes a level of like reading the room, which I guess maybe like Trey is exhibiting. He doesn't have his finger on the pulse of the social game of what's going on. Like there is a world where he didn't realize that, or maybe people were being upfront. You know how sometimes people lie. It's possible that like that's going on here, but like yeah, it's odd that he doesn't just like pocket it and kind of just go about his day. Maybe he just felt like too bad of a person if he did that. I don't know.
Right. Yeah. I wish Trey would have held on to this advantage. So yeah, I have no idea why Trey uses this, but like, he does. And an extra vote only sometimes can matter in these situations. I don't think it's the strongest of advantages, but I think it'd be nice to have. You never know when that could come to play if he holds on to it. And Ben does come back, and then Ben's happy that advantage still exists and it's with an ally. Like, I think there's a world where, or a really probably much better world for Trey, where he could hold on to this and make even better use of it.
But he gets it. He plays it immediately.
Yeah,
that's 2 votes.
Yeah,
to save Ben, and those are the only 2 votes that he's gonna get
to save Ben. I do want to. I like when Ben's confessionally says, "Well, Quinn used a little veto magic here, to pull the old rope to dope on me, and I think I'm toast here." No, actually, he says, "I think I might have the numbers," and I'm like, "From all of your alliances." Sorry, Ben, but I hate to tell you, but. This is where Max is stuck in this, in this spot between these 2 alliances. And he knows my best bet is to stay over here for now. Ben is a sinking ship. And he even thinks that Bobby is saving Ben, which is not true. I guess no one really knows the extent of Bobby and Leighton's relationship. But Max even thinks that Bobby's going to save Ben, and that's not the case either. So he really has no reason to save Ben here, or even go out on any limb to try and save him. It's a sinking ship, and he's done.
Right. So that takes us to this cut to the start of episode 3. We got a really fun Quinn confessional that will ultimately lead to his downfall.
Yeah. It's like the 5-step plan to Quinn world domination
of Big Brother Hometown season 3. Number 1, win the HOH. Check. Number 2, put 2 pawns up on the block. Check. Number 3, win the power of veto. Check. Number 4, use the veto to backdoor Ben. Check. I just like he's so
Yeah.
dramatic and I love it. Like, and then obviously Sophie, get him out of here. Like, it's so fun. Like, he truly is like television gold. Like, he pops when he's on the screen, and like, you know, I think that's, the larger conversation about BBH3 that we'll have eventually. Like, Quinn is the shining star for me in terms of like the characters that are on our screen as we're watching. He makes this season really fun. There are few other fun characters, but nobody that really just like pops as much as Quinn does. Um, and and I think that that's such a shame because we know that Bradley is a great narrator and a great confessional giver. John is, when he's on, he's having fun. You can see it. There's a glint in his eye. Max is a fun person. He could narrate his story so well. Melody has a lot of energy. She could really, narrate well. Abby, great confessional giver when she gives content.
Right.
And it's just a shame that kind of like the only person who's kind of hitting for me, just in my personal opinion, is Quinn, who's like every time he's on my screen, it's 100% A+ material and content, and I very much enjoy it. The rest of it's kind of like blasé a little bit for me, and I hope that changes as we get through the second half.
Right.
But that's kind of where I'm sitting here, like almost halfway through BBH3, where I'm kind of like, as a person who watches my TV for the drama and like the characters and the fun, I'm not getting a ton of that here from our narrators versus like season 1 and season 2, where there's just like really like bombastic people. So
Mhm.
say
Yeah, no,
one more time, Mitchell.
No, I think I agree with what you're saying at the heart. I think the gameplay is fun in this season more than the characters, and I think and you're right, and I think that's why that's what's at the forefront. And Quinn, like those two things, and so it's a good thing that Quinn is the one that is going to battle back when he eventually goes home here in a minute. So Trey works his little tail off to win this HOH, and he chronicles like his whole journey from watching the NC State football game to playing. It was an app game called Geometry Stacker. I don't know why I remember that, or something like that. It was like building blocks as high as you could on a little game, and he worked so hard, and he got his HOH right here, and he wants to take Quinn out. Like here, I mean, okay, this game is being just delivered on a platter to Bradley. Delivered on a platter. Oh, Trey wants to take Quinn out, and maybe Bradley and John planted those seeds.
Time to flip. Time to flip.
It's being handed to him on a platter. It's like, oh, Trey now wants to do my dirty work. Let me just sit back, Dan Alt style, with my and just like watch the game in front of me.
Everything works out good for Bradley. Everything works out good for Bradley.
So now here is where I'm going to go in on John, because this is all John. It's all John. He's the one that came into the season being a big Survivor fan and watch those games and wants to be the backstabber. He wants to get out in front before he gets got. Like, he wants all those things. And for whatever reason, I remember thinking this then, I think this now, like, he decided to go at it here. And this is the spot where I think Bradley could have had a little bit of, experience play in and be like, the battle back could be coming. This may not be the time. And even then, like, he at the end of this round gets Max and Quinn on the block. Like, if they just shut up this round, they probably still get Max and Quinn on the block at the end. And then they have to vote one of them out. No one gets mad. Nobody. It's perfect. It's literally perfect. Like, there's no reason that they couldn't have ridden this alliance out until final 7. Like, and so for whatever reason, John is like determined to make this move. And not only that, like, they could have turned in their hearts, but for whatever reason, this is so John, he decides to test Melody. Let's test Melody, and let's tell her that we're thinking about doing this, and we're wanting to turn on them, and we're wanting to make all this big move, and we want to test Melody to see if she'll blow up our games. Why would you do that? Why? I don't get it. And do you know what Melody does? Oh, someone that's not in the best spot, like someone that's not in a huge power structure, she takes this bit of information. She's like, "Oh, I think I'm going to get myself in a really good alliance right here. Now I'm going to be on top of this game." And just in one conversation's time, and goes right to Max and Quinn and says, "Hey, guess what?"
Yeah,
And screenshots may have been allowed in this season, so it probably was real easy to
to
do this.
convince them that this was
Yeah,
over.
and
Yeah, because
just
Max and Quinn are over it. Like the minute that they pop back up on the screen, they are both over it
yep,
because they've now been informed about this. Like, I want to give props to Melody here. She makes the correct move. The problem is, and it's not even her fault, is that they don't secure Trey to do something that's not going to hurt them.
right.
Like, it's great. It's a great move to take that information and run it right back to Max and Quinn, get them on your side with Abby. The four of you create this great alliance. Great. But you're not in power.
Right,
Like,
right,
and they this is almost a flawless move,
right.
like for Melody. But the problem is they
And I
don't
don't
have
know that
Trey.
and I don't know if they would have gotten Trey because Trey was in with John and Bradley, and they
Right.
were the ones making this move together, the three of them.
But I think
And
that could have been more covert. I think that's what I'm getting at. Like they like because we're gonna cut to this confessional later from Bradley where it appears that Max and Quinn could not contain themselves from being like, bro, what the heck?
yeah,
You
I
know?
I
And
have the receipts on that one too.
okay, good. I can't wait because like I think like if Melody and Max and Abby and Quinn had like kind of been a little bit more covert about this, it would have been a better move for them because like you have all the pieces. But Max and Quinn kind of blow it up that Melody kind of ratted on them and now she's just as vulnerable because she's not in power and
Right,
Trey's in with, Bradley and John. This could have gone really poorly for Melody.
right.
But in theory, it's the correct move to blow it up. But then what you do with that information is important, and sometimes we forget that. And I get it. I'm the same way. It is so easy to pop off, and
Right.
because you're mad. But like this, not a good move from
No.
Max and Quinn to
Right.
take this information and go back and blow it up because you now solidify that they're against you, and you don't have the power. Trey has the power and you're in danger, girl. You in
Yeah.
danger.
And so this is why I ultimately think that John is like tanking Bradley's game because this was John's big idea, and Bradley was on board with it. But like just to think the game that Bradley could have had here, he really, really like it all just falls apart for him. But so they're going through with this. Trey wins the HOH and he puts up John and Max, which I see. Like John's a ballsy player. Like he's willing to make these risks, and he's the one that said, "Hey, put me up. It makes some sense." But it only makes sense in the context of you guys turning on them without them knowing.
Right.
So now it doesn't make as much sense, but it works out for them in the sense of them accomplishing their goal. We get the pineapple is rotten conversation. Quinn says, I didn't really like pineapple that much anyway. Really great. And so then Max and Quinn come up with this, like, they're like, how do we want to let them know that, we turned on them? How do we want to do it? And John, like in his rant, calls it a very High School Musical yet funny way.
Yeah. It was very High School Musical of them. And I was like,
So this is the 4-step plan to leaving a group message from Quintetti. Step 1, change the group avatar.
oh
I
God.
don't remember what it was changed to. It's been changed again. This group message comes back to life in season 5, which is funny. Not for long, but it exists again in season 5.
Right.
I actually messaged it today just to be like, hey guys. So step 1, change the group avatar. Step 2, change the group name to Loose Lips Sink Ships. Step 3, Quinn, comment in. Actually, it's a 5-step plan. I'm sorry. Step 4, Quinn message in there and say, hey, Max, do you smell something rotten? Max to Max's reply, step 4, Max replies and says, yeah, I think I do. Oh, wait, it's those pineapples over there. Step 5, leave the group.
So bad. It's so bad. Like, and I can't sit here all high and mighty and be like, oh, I've never been so mad at somebody in the game that I've made a bad game move. But like, it's so bad. It's like,
But it's funny.
It's hilarious. Oh, it's great TV. As a VL member, I'm living, and it gives us this really fun Bradley confessional where he says like, I'm not worried about those teddy bros, or those teddy bears or whatever he says. And he says, loose lips sink ships. You're nerds.
So once again, this game was being handed on a silver platter to John and Bradley, really, but John wins the veto. Like, all he has to do is nothing in this round. Get traded, do your dirty work, and shut your mouth instead of testing Melody. Like, why? It's such a John thing. It's such a John thing. Like, so he wins the veto. It was all right there. And then we get a really fun, this is where he says the High School Musical thing, a really fun confessional from John, who is just amped up. He is freaking pumped right now. That's what he keeps saying. And he's just like high on this game move that he's making. It's big move-itis if I've ever seen it, ever. It's big move-itis personified is John Oliver right here. And so it's funny and it's good and I love that for him that he's living this out.
Sure.
This big move.
It's funny because this is one of those, there are really fun rounds of the game to talk about where you feel like everybody's kind of playing really well, they're playing in their best interest, and this is not one of those rounds. Like, this is one of those rounds where, like, is anybody playing the game well? Like, is anybody doing it? And you know what? I'm gonna stop. Let me give credit to the two people who are playing this round very well. And that's Bobby and Leighton, because they're nowhere to be found. They just shut up. They just let it happen. And, like, good on them. Like, they escape this, pretty much unfazed and, not making any bad moves for themselves. I imagine, at least.
Right. Yeah. So Trey puts Quinn up.
Sorry. The fear in his eyes.
Yeah.
When he's putting Quinn up is so palpable. He's like, I know I'm making a big move and I'm so sorry, but like, if somebody I just don't want to be mad at me.
Yeah. It shows the lengths that Trey's willing to go for John and Bradley. Oh, it's so unfortunate.
But it's also incredible that he's able to recover from it.
Yes.
From the collapse that is, and I think we gotta, looking forward, we have to admire that. Like, John and Bradley's game's about to come crashing down. Trey could easily have been a casualty in that collapse, but he somehow recovers.
Right. Trey is going to recover very well.
Some of it his own doing, some of it bad moves from other people, as we'll get to when we get to that second chapter. But I don't know, like, there's something important about stopping here. It's just like with Connor last season, where like Connor is at this point where he's throwing a temper tantrum.
Right.
Like, and here is a moment where Trey's game could collapse. Cut to, him almost winning. Yeah. So, I think it's a fun thing to kind of look at in a box there.
And this is where, and let's talk about this. It somewhere in the sequence we do get the Quinn confessional talking about his fears about being against Max on the block, and I know you want to speak to that.
I do, and I just, Quinn so accurately lays out what Max is doing. Like, Max is just trying to lay low. He's playing very safe. He hasn't done anything in this game, and he's just waiting for that opportunity to wake up and start playing the game, essentially. And I think Quinn is the perfect person to sit on the block next to, because 99 times out of 100 he's going to go home over you. And right. Max knows that, but it's why Max.
Yeah.
Go ahead. No,
they've both said it. Max and Quinn have both said it, that Quinn goes home over Max. And it's funny, this is our first instance in the series of Max versus Quinn on the block.
It will not be the last.
It will not be the last. It will not be the last. So, and as Quinn predicted, Quinn does go home at the hand of the bros, essentially. John and Bradley and Max and Bobby and Leighton. And then we get Quinn's exit video to the house. This is a trend. Quinn likes to do this. He's done this several times in his career. But it's like, don't trust Bradley and John. I aligned with them on day one. They cannot be trusted. I'll see you on finale night. Just kidding. I'll see you tomorrow. And so then it is battle back time, and we love the battle back. The battle backs in history will serve its purpose, and then I'm glad it dies when it dies when we get there. But they're still very fun, and this is in the stages of BBH, and I've probably said this before, where people are paying to play. So especially for this early boots, I want to give them that opportunity, and that's a lot of reason why the battle back exists. But it does provide us with a lot of fun. So this really was, a super intense competition where Ben and Quinn tied on the slide puzzle.
Crazy.
And then they have to do it again, and they're only separated by 2 seconds. They were just both very good at this. Like, it could have been either of them. I think we get the better option. And sorry to Ben, but in terms of especially television, like you've said, Quinn is the character. So we get Quinn right back in the house, turns right back around. And this is once again why I think that like Bradley should have, and I remember thinking this then, should have had this thought, like the battle that could be coming. Is this the best time to jump this ship of loose lips sinking said ships? So
just like last season, it's such a dynamic shift in the game. Cosmically shifts the way that the game is going and that the game will ultimately pan out. This is a fantastic thing for Abby and Melody and Max, and we get various confessionals throughout this portion of the episode of them just like, oh, this is the best thing that's ever happened. Quinn's back, or he's returned. Like, because they know that he's a shield.
Yeah.
Personally, none of them articulate that, but they know. Like, oh, here's somebody else who's gonna come in front of me. Like, and B, they know that like he's got people he wants to target, and it's not them. Like, them. And they're now gonna form this alliance of the 4 of them that are gonna really dictate a lot of what happens in the end game to an extent,
right?
Because obviously things will happen, but and this is really the peak of John and Bradley, and you can just see it written all over their faces. John is like, he's just like, well, it is what it is.
That's it. Same with Bradley. They're both just incredibly nervous. Max does say something interesting. He says, "We have a final 4. We're going all the way." Okay, chill, Max. Chill.
Yeah, how'd that work out for you, Max?
Yeah, well, pretty well, but like. No, I know we're really excited. I know we're excited that Quinn's back, but let's relax. Everyone's excited though. Abby's excited, Melody, Quinn, obviously, Max. And then so Quinn is not just back in the game. He is the HOH. And John's like, well, everything fell apart. Quinn nominated John and Bradley. He basically said to the house, yeah, like, you guys, do I even have to say it, guys? Like, it's John and Bradley. That's basically the vibe.
Which is the correct move.
Yeah, of course.
Of
course.
There's no need or no reason to try and backdoor someone, leave by leaving one of them off the block. Like, absolutely the correct move. Put them both up because you know that whoever's left on the block, the house will evict. So,
yeah. John also, like, in his heart of hearts, will always play this game when he's playing with Bradley in his heart to protect Bradley. His actions don't always reflect that. But in his heart of hearts, he's playing to protect Bradley. And we'll get to that in a minute here when we get to Trey's advantage. I do want to get to Quinn. Quinn is so hype. He gives us a great confessional, and he's like, "Karma's a B word." That's a direct quote. It
is. And another direct quote is, and as we've seen, loyalty will get you far. And it's like, babe, You were the fourth boot.
Yeah.
Loyalty did not get you far.
No.
Loyalty to Max and to Bradley and John got you evicted, babes. Like, what do you mean?
Loyalty will get you far. Yeah, keep trying that, Quinn. Tell us how that works out. If we ever get Quinn 6.0, I just want him to play the most reckless and the most like backstabby game he can play, because like obviously it is not working out for him.
Poor guy.
Poor guy. So to put a cap on this new alliance, Max, Abby, Melody, Quinn, they call themselves the Re-Avengers. Sure. Okay. They were excited about it, so that's fun. Like, you know, they're having a great time, and I was having a great time. I'm having a great time now. It's just it's an alliance name. It's on, and it's also not the only Re-Avengers in BBH history, weirdly enough. But you know, we'll get to that way down the road. Melody wins the power of veto, of course, chooses not to use it. She has no reason to, but then Trey swoops in. So
It's so bad.
Here's the thing. I don't think it's bad to use the advantage here. The thought process is, here's the thought process versus the reality. The reality is, if you're going to use it here, whoever you don't save is going home, period.
Mm-hmm.
The thought process was a Hail Mary, and the Hail Mary is, we have a much better shot of saving Bradley via the vote than saving John, because Bradley is playing better than John and has a better social game, has a better connection, has a chance to rally the votes. But the reality is that's never going to happen no matter what, because they've got to split them up here. And so this is why I think if you're going to use this advantage, you have to use it on Bradley, because Bradley does have the slightly better connections. He is a little bit of a better player that can get out of this with you. So he doesn't.
I think I see it differently. I think it's just a bad move all around.
Use it at all.
Because I don't think that there's a world where people are going to let John and Bradley stay in the game together. Like, I agree with you. I can get there about like, yeah, Bradley would be the better choice to pull off.
If you're going to use it, if you're going to try.
But it doesn't matter. Like, it truly did not matter. No matter what happened, the only thing that would have been a good move would have been if one of them had won the POV and then Trey whips out the secret POV, and now now Quinn has to make two really difficult choices, which I'm sure it would have just been Bobby and Leighton. So like, but that's, to me, I feel like it's, again, Trey burns his advantage. He burns his advantage that could have kept him safe later down the road. Like, and he's just throwing his lot in with a sinking ship, and I don't see how he doesn't recognize that. And once again, I'll say, his recovery is fantastic. We're not going to deny that. But how did he not recognize that this was what a shipping sink this was? And like
a sipping shink.
Did I say that? Leave it in. How did he not? How did he not recognize that John and Bradley had very little lifelines left in this game? Like, I don't know. I wish I could see more foresight or more forethought from Trey here.
No, I'm with you. I think he should have just held on to this. But if he's going to use it, I think the better move is to use it on Bradley. But the better move is to just, hey, I'm not on the block, and I might be one day.
Right, exactly. And I understand what you're saying. Like, it's a Hail Mary to try to save your alliance. And like, if there's one thing I know about Bradley, having been in an alliance with him, like, you want to save him. Like, he's like one of those people. I wrote down my notes that he truly is the king of the scramble. Like, he is really good at pitching ideas. He's really good at kind of like making people think that like him staying around is a good idea, or this person staying around is good. He's really good at planting those seeds and kind of like watering them like in the span of a single conversation. I remember like, and we'll get there eventually, like with BBH 10, like Bradley was one of those people that I just like would wait for him to get off work, because then I knew he showed up, I knew that like momentum would start to move things, and he has that ability as a game player. And I wonder if if there was ever a chance of him potentially staying Um,
There was not.
yeah, but like he paints a picture like there
I
is,
would
which
say
is
that
on
the girls
television. But
probably sorry, I would say the girls probably listened and, like,
sure.
gave it thought because they did like Bradley over John, I think,
Mhm.
but I don't think that it would have been enough for it to make sense for anybody to do that.
Yeah, I'm surprised. I think ultimately that people are like running to save Leighton because I don't know what he's doing in the game, so I don't have a lot of context for like
Yeah,
his relationships.
you do know what he's doing in the game. I You know exactly what he's doing in the game, and it is absolutely nothing.
Right. So like I am surprised that people didn't want to save Bradley because he has better social relationships with people. But I also recognize that like the duo is insurmountable. Like they have to break them up and so.
Right.
Oh, so I'm so sorry. We start to get the votes coming in, and Bobby's confessional sent me his vote. Sends me because he says, Bradley, he's been really good to me in this game, but like Leighton's been my friend since I was like 10 years old, so this is a really tough decision.
Yeah.
What? What?
He's just a genuinely very kind-hearted person. That's a very Bobby thing. Like, I wish that we could see more of the person of Bobby because he's very fun and very enjoyable and truly very kind-hearted in that way. And he means that like this is tough for him, even though like he's never gonna vote out Leighton.
It was just so
Truly
funny.
ever.
It was so funny to me.
Yeah, then we cut to John. Like at one point, he sees the writing on the wall even more. Like whatever, and then we get the Bradley post-mortem video where he's just grasping at straws. Like, I just need a win here, guys. Please vote me America's favorite. Like, I need something here. This one's sad. But don't worry, Bradley, he'll be back.
He'll be back 3 more times.
Yeah, 3 more times. And Bradley is also the first juror here of the season. So we do get
he's
Bradley.
not the Trey Raub of the season.
He's not the Trey Raub of the season. I don't believe there is a Trey Raub.
There's not. That's why I wrote down that he's here in the Trey Raub spot, but I was mistaken. I forgot that we did get to see Bradley on the jury, so that's wonderful.
Yes. And that, I think, pretty much wraps up our first half of BBH 3.
Yeah, and I mean, this has definitely set the stage for some fun stuff to come. I think like just like as an overview, we're gonna see the continued downfall of John Oliver. We're gonna see Max playing a game and winning a lot of challenges. And we'll talk about his path ultimately to the victory. I mean, through 3 episodes, Max is kind of like invisible. He's a little UTR.
He's a supporting character at the moment.
Yeah, and he's gonna catapult himself into the main character real fast. But we'll see. We'll discuss the moves that Max makes down the end, and talk about all the things that BBH3 jury phase has to offer us as we get there.
Yeah, and I think it's a very fun one. We see some really good gameplay, some really not so good gameplay, and we see and look forward to this. If you haven't watched it yet, we have our first live finale. You get to watch a jury question the final 2 live for the first time in BBH history, and it is very enjoyable. I think it's a very fun finale, even though we don't get all the jurors, and you can guess which ones didn't make an appearance. But like it's still very fun, and there's once again a very high spirit of fun in that finale. So I'm really excited to talk about it, and we can just finally dissect some questions and answers and jury performances, and start to compare those to others down the line. Lots of good stuff. So go ahead, watch the next 3 episodes of BBH 3, and then keep on with us for the second chapter of this. Anything else from you, Mitchell?
I'm good. I'm excited to see what we're going to talk about next.
Yes, and until then, we are signing off. For Mr. Stokes, I'm Josh Salvo. We'll see you next time on Picture This, a Big Brother Hometowns retrospective podcast.